Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Mayor Patrick T. Riley.
Here.
Vice Chair Steve Rivet.
Here.
Council members Grant Ball.
Here.
Laura Mahoney.
Here.
Dick Korn.
Is excused.
Danny White.
Here.
Town Administrator Douglas Hoyt.
Here.
Town Attorney Carl Bone.
Here.
I'm the Town Clerk Treasurer Debbie Franklin. For the record, the Fire Chief Mike Foley and the Assistant Fire Chief
Joe Giantonio.
are both present.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the town council meeting minutes of April 16, 2018.
Move to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Any changes?
I suggest we remove the additional vote on the bottom of D1. It reads as though we voted for a separate repository, which we did not.
Where was that?
It's just on the very first D, see consent agenda, and then it's already got the vote 5-0, and then it's repeated, A's 5 and 0, and it looks as though it just kind of is too close to, it looks like need an additional repository for that work. And we didn't vote for that. So we just cross that out.
Cross out the need for an additional repository?
Cross out vote A's 5 and A 0.
No. The first vote was to accept the short version.
Yeah, the specific version.
It's two different votes.
Because this looks like it's voting for, then that needs to be made clear that it's voting for the short minutes, right? We're voting for the minutes.
Well, you're saying right under D1, it says we're voting to accept the short version of the 3/19/18. Is that very specific?
Right. And the second one was the acceptance of the minutes.
So this should be the acceptance of the minutes, probably, right? If the location appears like it just is confusing to me. You don't think it's a little confusing, Sally?
Yeah.
The acceptance of the minutes would be at the very end or the very beginning.
Right. What we should do, Debbie, is scratch out the very first one. The vote 5-0, where it said the motion is up front.
The short version.
Right.
Okay.
And then just leave the bottom one.
Okay.
We're going to reverse what you just said. We'll delete the top version, the top 5-0,
Well,
and then leave it down at the bottom.
but what it says then is it says.
That's how we normally do it. First you get a motion, and then you do the vote.
As what Casey and Gordon says, need an additional repository for that work, vote A's 5, nay 0. That sounds as though we're voting for an additional repository,
Yeah.
isn't it? Well, if you wrote.
Read the sentence before that. It says, same as what C.N. Corn was saying. So it's
Right.
part of the sentence.
Well, then this just needs to be the copy as the minutes. Say, how about just saying, approval of minutes? Would that be
Go
clear?
ahead, Debbie.
After the motion is made, then you have the section that's always entitled discussion, and then that's the capture of the various council members' discussion. And Mr. White is saying the same as what Mr. Korn was saying, that we need an additional repository for the work. The vote is on this motion up here.
But she's saying, why is the vote twice?
I don't know, the vote shouldn't have been up here, it should be at the end of the discussion.
Exactly.
And that's why I wrote that in there, because that,
Then how about just putting motion Casey, so put the whole thing, motion Casey, or CM Corn, CM White to accept the short version of the 319 minutes, vote 5-0, down at the bottom.
point is because
No, the
the
motion
order in
comes
which it-
first.
Yeah, the order in which it happened is the motion came first.
Then the
which is-
discussion.
And then the discussion and then.
And then you vote. Right, anything else?
Yes.
All in favor?
Well, no, I said yes, I have something else. So on page 3, and that's number 2, the resolution, the motion, the discussion, I put down, this is a very detailed staff voice where the public and council voice has been completely eliminated. I would suggest that attach my report and state here, see attachment. That would be, I think, this is part of talking about the short minutes. You don't want to have it one-sided and have just one person's voice.
Huh?
Well, it's just the minutes, that's not part of the minutes.
Right.
How is that part of the minutes?
Well,
I
because
gotta understand.
I read the person's questions into, so I believe Debbie was answering some of my questions, but it just doesn't, it just shows one side of why we're doing this. So it just didn't have all the other questions listed.
Remember, this is the short version. We're
That's why it
trying to
should be-
capture the highlights.
Well, I would take it all out then. You know, it should include the other information, or, because it's,
Well, hold on, stop. It says, read it. Did you read this? It
I
says,
did
CM
read it.
has some questions not provided. Not provided. You didn't provide her the questions. You spoke them out loud, and that's what got answered.
I sent it in an email.
Okay.
It's provided.
Okay, so the emails are public record.
Right.
It's
Well,
accessible.
Yeah, I did get that after 10:30 that night, but I didn't have it at the meeting, and that's why I wrote it not provided.
Right, anything else? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried, 3-1. Move on to attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I indicated at the last meeting, I was going to be talking with John Connor, who is the attorney hired by our insurance defense counsel in the Painted Acre litigation. The trial date is scheduled on the docket for February 4th, 2019. May seem a long way away, but it just comes up fast. We have deadlines that we must comply with as far as disclosure of expert witnesses and disclosure of regular witnesses and exhibits and documents. Those, I think, for us are in August of 2018. We're still trying to figure out who is going to be the designated town representative to sit at the chair when the trial begins. We haven't figured out who's going to have that person be here. And other than that, the case is going to proceed only upon the Burke Harris claim. The other claims they've abandoned, so they just have the one claim. And, you know, typically with dockets, you know, if it's a 2-week docket, a 1-week docket, whatever it is, the court always puts on way more trials than the docket can handle. Pretty much what happens is 90% of them peter out, get continued or whatnot. So we're estimating a 3-day trial, and we don't know where we actually are on the docket, whether we're 1st or 50th. That would come out later. And as I said, just because we're on the docket doesn't mean we're going to go. but we have to be ready. And other than that, that's all I got.
So we still have all our evidence and stuff from the first time, right? So it should be easy to put together.
Yeah, it should be more of a refresher for Mr. Connor than any kind of exercise in gathering stuff up. I mean, we pretty much are ready, but it's just a refresher, that's all we're gonna have to get ready for. I don't know about whether or not we had an expert witness at the last time, about, you know, if we're gonna have to designate an expert witness to possibly testify at trial, but we're not sure if we're gonna need it, if we're not sure they're gonna designate one, so. But as I said, it may seem a long way away, but before we know it, it'll be Christmas and we gotta get ready for a trial. That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to board and committees. I'm going to have Public Works, Tom, go first.
Good evening, Tom Mallory, Public Works Director. Right now, I don't have too many things to report because I only have 2 employees right now, so we're just kind of moving along as fast as we can. Getting pretty well backed up right now. I'm working on the scheduling, type of schedule that you asked for. You have to understand scheduling is subject to change every day. My biggest issue right now is the grade all, the excavator. We had it repaired. It was down for 2.5 weeks. It didn't make it out the gate before it broke again. It was down for another week. We used it for 2 days, and it's now down again for another 2 weeks. So that's 5 weeks out of the last 2 months. So right now, we're pretty much at a standstill on any type of drainage work, which is the whole road project that we started, is pretty much come to a halt again. So that's about it right now.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. So what happened to your other employees? Are they just out of?
One quit and the other one was involved in a car accident. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks.
Didn't we used to have 5 other in your review? We just had 2 others?
It was 5, and when the last one quit, it was never replaced.
Okay. So we don't have the park person anymore?
Well, he's back in Public Works right now.
Okay. So is that why the soccer field has been just kind of left? Is that what it left?
The soccer field gets mowed every Friday. So does the baseball field, and the field gets dragged every Friday.
Okay. I had some questions that I listed for Doug, so I should probably just ask you.
No,
to-
no. He's
No?
just given a report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thursday.
Drive safe.
Thanks.
See you guys when you get back.
Yeah, I'll see you guys Friday.
Drive safe.
Yep.
All right, move on to Doug.
The other thing I have is we have, in our continuing effort to clean up the town facilities, there's a large amount of scrap corrugated pipes that have been replaced over the years in our storage yard over on Marie Street. Actually, we're sorting them out of the woods there, and it looks to me like there's about 3 or 4 roll-off containers. I've contacted the scrap metal dealer. He'll bring a container in and pay us, albeit a very small amount. It'll still get rid of that stuff. I'd like council's approval to proceed with this.
Yes.
So that's a yes, okay. And to further on the lack of employees in the Public Works Department, we've had an admin up for what, 3 weeks now?
This is the 3rd week, yes.
Yes. And we've had 0 response. I've talked to a couple of the contractors. They're telling me the same thing. What they have told me is that they've had some luck with Craigslist, so I believe we'll be placing a list on Craigslist. Part of the deterrent is most of the people that we need to have CDL driver's license. So those people are at a premium right now. But we're pushing ahead on that. And That's pretty much it.
Go ahead.
So obviously, we've got, this is why it's been slowed down, is because we don't have enough employees, but, so I'm still waiting for a response from Works Records. So in the meantime, I have this as spring cleaning. As you know, I've focused on the culverts that have needed attention. I've asked to direct Public Works to clean out the culverts before the rains begin, particulars to keep in mind, not only at the corner, but along both. I'd recommend starting at extreme outflow end and working backwards on all these. Corey and Benjamin clear culverts and connect all of ditch flow from Benjamin to Corey and clear Corey going north. And then Marie Street south side, particularly Marie and Gladder, the one that was scheduled to be replaced. The most simple and inexpensive fix would be to clean it and an extension, clear the ditch on the south side of Gladder, going all the way east on Gladder past the homes and connecting the culvert just southeast of the homes toward the railroad. And Atz Road, special attention to the west side of Corey on Atz, where the overflow of the improved Atz project floods past Corey, moves west, and floods the southern homes on Quarterman. Atz, Hazel Lane culvert also needs cleaned out as well, and the Atz and LaPorte going east on Atz and under LaPorte. And also Rocky Point area needs attention and suggestions for the perceived flooding where surrounding homes receiving stormwater property owners' land improvements caused overflow of drainage into the neighbor's property. And this brings me to some research concerning the purpose of updating our comprehensive land use. As you know, we've been updating our possibilities of rezoning areas for commercial use. What I found out by using the information we received as a town suggesting the update and generated by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, along with the Regional Planning Council, 2 major general steps suggested. Collect the data from professionally acceptable sources, analyze the data to identify areas.
We're going to do a point of order here.
Is there a question?
Yeah, you
Well,
asked 0
it's-
questions.
A statement to check this. This would be great, and I sent it to him, but this would actually give us, monies. See, if you go after collecting the data and performing the analysis of specific development, redevelopment principles and strategies to reduce the flood risk and property damage, after our comprehensive land use has been updated to show our stormwater runoff system analysis, and we identify the most high priority needs at risk, in our case would be property damage, we can apply for some of the millions of dollars set aside for this purpose. In fact, some homes could possibly qualify to be bought out as they are in flood zones. In my opinion, this is the #1 priority and what we must identify in our
I
comprehensive
still
land
point
use
of order.
plan.
I haven't heard a question to the town.
Well, this is a suggestion that
What's the question?
we need to identify our stormwater areas so that we can get this money. If we do our comprehensive land use and identify the stormwater, some of those homes that have been majorly flooded, they could buy them out. We could use the millions of dollars provided and buy out so that they're no longer.
The comprehensive plan use has nothing to do with buying people out.
Oh,
It's the future of the town, which was done a couple of
Actually,
years ago.
the reason that they sent that, I called, I asked, why are we doing the rezoning specifically? What was your point? If you call the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, they will tell you that the main reason is so that we're updated with our water, stormwater, that there's millions of dollars of money provided for us if we update our comprehensive land use and identify where this water is.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Okay, that's partially correct, and I did report on that to council on a number of occasions and during the workshop, that it is a requirement when we do our update to the comp plan that we include any statutory adoptions that have happened since our last update. In this case, and I think I referenced it by its name, the peril of flood, which is now adopted and legislated in the statutes, we have to comply with that. So we're not doing any zoning changes. we're proposing land use designation changes, but in addition to that, we also have to update our flood section, the element on flooding, to include language on this peril of flooding, okay? And that's all in the process of being worked right now.
And we can actually identify those homes that are in flood zones, and there's a possibility they could be bought out.
It's a long way between there and there, but yes, you're right.
But, so we should
There are
really
ones
identify
available for
that
that.
so that they can. The other thing that I also wanted to ask is about the soccer field. I mean, I think that Tom answered that it's being mowed, but I thought that it was all being taken care of when last, but
First and foremost, do you have my email address?
absolutely. I emailed this all
Well,
to
you
you.
have nearly 2 pages of question or commentary there. If you'd like intelligent answers, I would suggest that you send it to me a couple of days in advance so that we can research this and see exactly, get you some pertinent answers. Secondly, we can't manufacture people, we can't go out on the street and force them to come in and work for the town.
No. But
We're
this-
doing everything possible.
The spring cleaning, you already know this. I've already told you this several times.
Send it to me in email, and I'll answer it as best I can. But take up council time when I'm not prepared to answer it at this point without some documentation doesn't make any sense. When you could take care of that with a simple email.
Well, I also noticed in your statements, there's a lot of micromanaging, a lot of telling exactly which tasks to perform, and that's inappropriate. I mean, that's insulting to the people that you're trying to manage. And are you a civil engineer?
No.
Okay, neither am I. That's why I'm not trying to tell Doug what to do. I know that Doug has a responsibility to work with the town engineer to, execute on drainage improvement projects, okay? So it's not appropriate for any of us to be here to assigning specific tasks for things that we're assigning.
But these ditches have these culverts. They just need cleaned out. And they've been being told that we would be doing this in the winter time. And they weren't done.
Go ahead there.
Well, number one of the projects is being reactivated with an outside contractor who, by the way, says it's going to be a couple of weeks before we can get back on site. We've had our people, public works people, over on Hall Road now. We've started and stopped on that. Every time we start on it, the equipment breaks down. And in order to ameliorate that situation, we rented a mini excavator, or an excavator, like a tracked excavator, and it wasn't satisfactory to do the job. We've been unable to locate another gradle, either in a rental fleet, in which case construction is at a high again in the United States. Don't find any available, and we're looking into other alternatives. We strongly realize that this time of the year is the time to be working on these projects. There's very little rain, the ditches are dry, let's get the job done now. Unfortunately, we don't have the tools to do it. And it's not something you can give a guy a shovel and say, get in the ditch and have at it, because of the amount of changes that need to be made. In terms of looking at outside funding for things, actually we're doing that on an increasing level. I spent half of the day today looking at outside, the possibilities for outside funding to take care of some of these additional projects that we'd like to get completed. If you take a look at the town's budget, we're not equipped to hire contractors. And as I said before, the reason that we're doing the Ants Road project and the Hall Road project is because in terms of culverts being replaced, lineal footage of work being done, they're almost identical, and at that point we can make a better decision going forward as to what's the best use of the town's dollars. But you just get out there and dig a ditch because somebody complains that there's water in his property. We've got a town full of those situations, and I don't think we need to continue in that regard. We're working with Morris, who is a civil engineer, registered civil engineer, forward with what needs to be done. And in addition to that, we'll be starting this again. We're shooting all of the elevations of all the roads and the intersections so that Public Works has a readily identifiable point so that if they need to go out and clean a culvert or whatever the case may be, they have that information. At this point, they don't. So, well, they do on half of the town now because we've gotten half the town now. So we are trying to move forward with this, using the resources at hand. And again, if you'll send me these questions in advance, then I think we can have better answers for you going forward. But to come to council and say, hey, I need 2 pages worth of information.
This is, you've heard it over and over, so I'm trying to find out what Public Works is doing, and I know we could use shovels to go and help culverts,
Well,
but I appreciate the other information that you've
Public
given.
Works is giving you a schedule, and we're working on Public Works, and I believe he'll be coming to council, one meeting out of the month, to give you an update on this, so that we have a better idea of what's going on.
That will help a lot. No, I have actually called a couple cities, and they said that they post their Public Works projects.
Well, because we have such a small amount of people, we're reluctant to do that, because Monday morning they come in and they say, okay, this is our plan, we're gonna move the parts, pick up all the garbage, and so on and so forth. And something occurs, and they have to take our 2 people, or in some cases 4 people. And by the way, council approved last year the hiring of 2 more people, so we have a total of 6. We haven't hired them for 2 reasons. One, we haven't had the equipment that operates, and 2, we haven't been able to find anybody. We just, again, we can't go out on the street corner and Shanghai people these days. So anyway, council will be doing this, hopefully on a weekly basis, but I don't think posting it on the internet is the best idea, because then it's just going to create problems. People say, well, you said you were going to do this on such and such a date. What they don't know is we had a culvert collapse and our crew was out replacing the culvert.
I think that we all understand that there are situations. We had 6 people working last August, and now obviously we're down to 2. That information, knowing that information, sets the public at ease. It does. It helps to know what's going on. By spending a couple of years not knowing what Public Works is doing is hard on the people because they don't have the information.
Well, we're making an effort to rectify that situation.
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The gentleman that drives our slope mower, is he one of the ones that move without, or I forget his name?
Oh, Felix?
Felix, yes.
Felix is, in my opinion, an excellent employee. He's
Yes.
always here, always on time, and he is here now. And he's operating the slope mower. And in the event that we should be having a demonstration on that ditch digger that we went over to Palm Bay to look at, he would be the one that would operate that. And quite frankly, if we should get that piece of equipment, and we want to do a demonstration for council in general, I talked to the company today and they said they were working on getting a piece of equipment over here for us. Instead of being able to clean a couple of 100 feet with the gradle, they can do, what was it, they said 2,000 feet a day with that machine?
3 of them.
3,000, you're right, it was 3,000. So that should improve the overall situation in the town greatly and allow us to clean. We have 58 miles or 68 miles of ditches in the town, and we know they're neglected, and that's not a happy situation, but
Well, my question is this, I mean, at least 5 of us that were there for the demonstration
right.
loved it, okay? And do we need another town demonstration? I mean, I would like to move to purchase it. So I'm
We're just
asking
gonna
you
put it on
guys,
the
y'all,
agenda.
I know,
Put it on
I
the
know.
next agenda.
But do you fellows feel like you need to see a demonstration before you do anything?
No.
Okay, well, let's put it on the agenda.
And if they're gonna do it in the next couple of weeks, and this machine will operate underwater, it will operate in a dry situation.
And I think this would accomplish what Laura's,
Right.
one part of what you're talking about.
I do want to say one thing. Felix
Yeah.
is very well known as being an excellent kind of
Yeah.
equipment operator.
I just
mean,
wanted to make sure he
that
was still with us, because he would be the one that would be operating the
Exactly.
equipment.
If we
Yes.
could get more of him,
Okay.
And the other reason I'd like to have a demonstration is invite the citizens of the town. I mean, after all, they're our bosses. And I think if they could see this piece of equipment operate, I'd like them to share the enthusiasm that I believe you and I have.
I agree, I just think we're burning daylight, so to
Right.
speak, you know, so.
Well, if it's not gonna happen for 2 more months, then I think we ought to move on. But if they're gonna, if it's going to occur in the next week or so, let's wait for that demo.
What's that?
Did somebody check on his phone?
He's excused.
Okay, okay. I thought he was in.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else?
Anything else?
Thank you. Move on to Madam Clerk.
Okay, I've got several things. Spring Fest was April 21st. It was a great success. It was a beautiful day. We had a good turnout. There were lots of great cars to look at, and the fire department did a great job with barbecue. Since we had done a Fall Fest, we did not spend additional money on pony ride vendors or a live band, and we kept the total expenditures still below the $5,000 that was originally budgeted for the year. We had positive input for 2 events a year, but we had more support for one big event with live music and pony rides. I've prepared 2 handouts for you, and I've placed them in your mail slots. One handout addresses the homestead exemption information that I've discussed at a couple of, through emails and at the last meeting, this proposed amendment 1 that's going to add an additional $25,000 exemption. So there's information on that, and then the other handout is a budget to actual that Mr. Mahoney was asking for. It goes from October through March. It is marked up as a draft and as a working copy because that's what it's intended for, to let you know how we are halfway through the year. It also says that I've included the capital improvement plan update. But Doug and I are still working on it, and he didn't have any time for me today, so it kind of got left out. But it'll be caught up and sent out to you. And then a information packet on how to read the budget, how to use the budget. It's a guide for our citizens. And that's kind of a work in process, and I'm giving you guys the first version. Both of those handouts will be given out again for the June 11th workshop. Okay, so they're not intended to initiate any conversation tonight, just information. And then the last thing I wanted to point out and recognize that the Transportation Planning Organization for the Space Coast is going to be meeting on May 10th in Vieira, and Brian Vale, our own, is going to be awarded along with the other Trails and Greenways members for their contributions on the trail enhancements in Malabar. And then at that same meeting, a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee is also going to be recognized. His name's Murray Hahn. He lives on Quarry Road, and he has been a very active member in the bicycle clubs and also with our Trails and Greenways. And he has been Malabar's citizen representative on that advisory committee for the past 3 years, and is being awarded a certificate recognizing his more than 85% attendance record in those 3 years. So if you guys can make it up to Vieira on the 10th at 3 o'clock, they're putting the awards at the front end of the meeting, and I think it would be well served to have somebody up there. I know the mayor's going to be going, but, and I did RSVP for 5 people. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Any questions? Go ahead, Doug.
I'd like to make one other comment about the budget, and that's that some items are front-end loaded, and so some items are back-end loaded. So consequently, if you're looking at percentages in the budget, they can be skewed in a given line item or given department. So,
Two-day spending.
I'm sorry?
Like the 2-day spending numbers is what you're
Right,
talking
the
about.
2-day spending numbers may not reflect what's going to occur for the year.
One thing I want to bring up is, does the council want to support just the one fest with the Fall Fest? and not do the Spring Fest. And if we could just do it now instead of having it as an agenda item, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we'll just put it on. If you can make up your mind now.
A spring event or a fall event,
Yeah.
just one event.
Yeah, just do one event a year, not two.
One bigger event.
Yeah, one bigger event.
I don't have a problem with
Okay. One big event.
I would note that the Fall Fest, the rainy season, do we know when it's more rainy than other times? That would be the only thing.
Now, only if there's no hurricane.
Yeah, and
It would be November.
November.
Yeah.
I'm for that. And matter of fact, the gentleman that organized the
Yeah.
car show, he said it's hard for us to
Yeah.
do that too.
So he'd rather do the fall. Fest.
Yes.
Well, I think we can do a better job if we put our efforts into doing one instead of doing two. But I don't know which would be the best, and it would be looking at, a couple things need to be taken into consideration. The competition, Spring Fest, there's a lot of other things going on. Maybe the Fall Fest, there's less competition, as well as weather. Spring Fest, we can pretty much know we're gonna have nice weather, it might be rainy, but other than that, it's gonna be nice. Fall Fest, it's a shoot.
Well, usually we don't have hurricanes
No, but
in end of October.
you're right, but I mean, what else is going on?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that needs to be looked at, but I think it makes more sense to put our efforts into one than it does.
Okay. Why don't we put it on the agenda and then we'll decide
Okay.
to make it the fall or the spring.
Okay.
Anything else?
Is that for the next agenda?
Yeah.
Want to go to committee reports?
I'm doing it right now. I had to skip you on purpose. Tell them how to get out of here.
Oh.
All right, we're going to move on to board committee reports. On Trail and Greenway Committee, please.
Good evening, Mayor Riley, members of the Town Council. I wish you well, and I once again thank you for all your service. I'll try to be brief with this. I do have a little bit of a presentation because there are 4 things I wanted to mention, but as we get rolling with it here, basically wanted to identify there are 2 membership slots on the Town's Trails and Greenways Committee, 2 vacancies, so we are looking for some new folks, but we are still continuing to crank. And one of the things we've got going, underscore RTCM. And basically what we've got going, I wanted to kind of let you know some things that have been happening with the Trails and Greenways Committee. When I was here last, I'm kind of cranking on this here in a second. But when I was here last, I think I spoke to you on February 5th. I don't think I've been doing a report since then. So at that time, we talked about one of the things that had occurred at the ADA restroom reception, and that was that we had the OGT representative here, and you can go to like the 3rd slide. Yeah, that's fine. And basically, we talked about becoming a Florida trail town. And we kind of had heard it all at the same time at that reception, and we were very interested in it. And one of the things that happened, I came back to you on February 5th and talked about, hey, do I have your permission to kind of scope it out? And we won't sign on the dotted line until we find out if there's any obligatory things financially or otherwise. On February 9th, I found out from the OGT that there is nothing we are risking by doing that. I have that in writing from that. So there's no financial obligation. They'll actually provide us with a couple of signs if, in fact, we are a town that's chosen for that designation. What this will do is it put us on the map for ecotourism, and that's something that's been talked about for years and years. It's evident that the town charter talks about being a rural residential community and wanting to stay that way. This does in no way compete or conflict with that ideology. So this is essentially a huge thing that the state of Florida is recognizing. Small towns need a little bit of help getting on the map for this, and they want to have obviously acknowledgement of the 75% environmental kind of backing that the state seems to have. So basically what happened is, I got the authorization from you all to pursue it as far as checking into it. I got the okay that we have no caveats of anxiety to worry about from a fiscal perspective or otherwise. And it took me to filling the thing out with the committee. Our Trails Committee went over it, we reviewed it, we circulated it, we kind of went back and forth. A copy of the completed draft version has been provided to Debbie. She will provide that to you all for review. And I encourage you to, I don't really see anything, there's no hidden agendas I'm aware of. I think this is going to hopefully be a pretty quick review, minimal, if any, kind of additions or changes. But again, it's the town submitting it, so it's within your venue to do so. But basically, if we can get this in soon, by late June, get on the agenda. There's a next meeting of OGT within the FBEP is late June. And I think our probability of becoming a trail town is higher if we're earlier into the queue, before this catches on. There was a release on April 20th of a DEP press release that talked about Dunedin and the reception they're getting and how basically it's bringing ecotourism to that town. And it's kind of everything we've talked about and wished we could have. And we don't really have any vendors currently here, but I'm thinking if we can get identified, more people know that the trails are here, there'll be people that'll be interested in making some money off of the potential with ecotourism. And again, that will be under your venue for how those businesses are set up. So, all that being said, basically, kind of wanted to just talk about actually slide 5, please. Yeah. And actually go up one, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm used to seeing it the other way. We are basically, this is tonight, I'm basically saying you all have the draft. It's up to you to kind of nail it in once you're okay with it, assuming you are, of course. But I really think this is our chance. If we wait till if we wait till September or October, I think our chances will diminish being accepted. And there's a few things we're short on. We don't have restaurants on the trails. We don't have a few things that way. We carefully worded that around to basically give us the best posture and benefit for getting as many points as we could. We know that OGT does look at a point system when they evaluate these, so we're hoping that by fewer applications being in the queue, our points will look better proportionally. So again, I encourage you to react quickly on that. Next item then, we are talking about another trailhead within Malabar. And this is a potential, we talked about this for a few years. Those of you that are familiar with Malabar, trail system know that most of the effort so far has gone into the north of Malabar Road area. We're pretty extensive with that. The signage is there. We did the Cameron Trail Shelter. We have a trailhead at Marie Street, the Sandhill Trailhead number 1, which has been out there for a while and been supported. There's now an ADA restroom there. There's also a trailhead at the end of Quarry Road, the north end. What we don't really have is any way, other than a very small trailhead hooked to the Jordan Scrub, which is an eel property managed area, which is huge. We really don't have a place to kind of go for a lot of folks to go into Jordan Scrub to park and prepare. And what we'd like to do is see if we could do that on a very low budget, yet sustainable into the future, not do anything we can't afford to keep going with. So we're kind of doing baby steps, and we try to do things right, but we build them to last so there's not a lot of future investment. So the thought being, we've talked with our town administrator, Doug Hoyt, with respect with going with basically property that was recently rediscovered thanks to some efforts. I think Doug found it in the river, according to the geographic appraisal site. The property hooked to what's now I call the town compound, which is where a lot of refuse from storms and things and pipes, as Doug referenced earlier, are kept. To the north of the 2 lots that are primarily cleared, there's a 3rd lot that falls south of the Eel property parking lot, if you're familiar with Marie Street. That is our targeted property. We walked it with the fire department. Doug was there. We were there on this Saturday. Full committee was out. We basically kind of looked at pros and cons and how much hassle would it be to use this or that. What we ultimately would love to have is a piece of property adjacent to Jordan and Marie. Or really, they're the same thing, Jordan, Marie, and Axe, right at that section. So there's a little bit of distance south of this compound that is still just Eel's property. So it didn't matter whether we would deal with the yellow section or the blue, but we thought the blue would make more sense, because if we developed this, and we would submit the plan before doing anything with the town, but we would basically go to council and propose that a parking lot area be designed, minimal fill. Basically, it seems to be a pretty dry area, so we're fortunate that way. But only hollow out what we would need to facilitate a new trailhead, minimal footprint, if you will. So that what we would have in the future would basically be something that still looked good from the Marie Street vantage, looked good from the Eel vantage. There's really no concern of how it looks from the compound, but we would try to basically keep a buffer and try not to have this look like a parking lot, meaning there'd be a way in, it would be a woodsy effect, the parking would be more towards the back. Entry most likely would occur into the Jordan Scrub after permission from the Eel program through the back or through the Eel program entrance that exists now. But this would provide a lot more parking than, I hadn't parked there before. And while I was there getting ready for this meeting, we actually had a little traffic jam. There were only 3 cars in the parking lot. So it was actually just, it needs a bigger facility to really be used right. So if we could do this, it's something we can start. We can, there's no, any dollar investment that we see in the future, y'all would pre-approve, but we can get going and do a lot of things with this year and kind of provide people in South Malabar, I'm talking about South Malabar Road, with a viable new trailhead. I think it'd be huge for the town and kind of get us access really to the plethora of wonderful scrub that is the Jordan Scrub Sanctuary. And a lot of people have no idea there's 2 big lakes in there. It's a beautiful area. This kind of would open that up a little bit, and it's a real, we've griped a lot about what's not on the tax docket. This would be a benefit for what we put up with that's not taxed. So we'd like to pursue that. I'm looking to council for some kind of rhetoric and hopefully approval for a go-ahead by this committee. 2 other things then. We can go to the next slide, please. And if you don't mind maximizing, can you do the PowerPoint show?
Here.
Look, there we go. It's, we're fine. This here, Debbie mentioned it, a couple more words to say about Murray. Murray was actually, for many, many years, the chair of the BPTAC, which is really the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee and Trails Advisory Committee. But we basically, for the whole county, he's been super involved. And I just want to point this out. Murray has had involvement with the EEL program. He's attending the REACT meetings. He's involved there. He's high up in working with the BNBA, which is really producing a major bike park off of Babcock with the Grapefruit Trails. He's been super involved with Trail Partners in the past. I know I've worked with him on trails going back 20 years. You know, I feel like an old Malivarian here at this point. But at the same point, Murray was there at all these events. Everything I could think of, whether it was a trail, it's hard to walk out on a trail and not see this guy. What BPTAC, it wasn't just attendance, it was actually acknowledgement of a lot of the stuff that he has made the difference in. I even have Brooke Hollow up on there because I know that he was pivotal in closing the deal with Eels, with the original vendor, developer that wanted to put 370 more homes in it, which would have really messed up the woods and the greenway and a lot of things that we know today and enjoy. So I just wanted to point this out, as Debbie mentioned, on Thursday this week at 3 o'clock in Viera. There will be a formal recognition of his lifetime work, and they're not telling him he can't do any more. They're being very careful about this because they really want him to continue additional lifetime work. But it was time that he be acknowledged, so that was it. I'm actually your town rep. I go to the BPTAC stuff too. So anyway, I want to get credit for that. So, okay. One more slide.
I'll fix the minutes.
And as Debbie mentioned too, this person in the audience tonight who had no idea we'd have the slide up on the wall, he's going to be mad at me for that. But this, and I'll correct you, Debbie, on that if I may.
Sure.
This honor is for this individual, Mr. Vail. Our committee's been honored actually in the past. He's not on our committee. This was just really an acknowledgement. We told the TPO, we told BPTAC, we presented what this individual had done with his time, his effort, contributions, just a tremendous amount of design and guidance. And it made a huge difference. And I wanted to bring that to council just to show that in one meeting at a county level, we had 2 different individuals from this town honored for their work in the county. You know, this is, people look at this stuff at the county level. It's not just Malabar. So Malabar is on the map, our trails are on the map. Our trails will be really on a formal map, providing that first issue, depending on how you all see that. But I really think that's the key to the town. We've got some beautiful wooded areas, and if we manage it right, it'll come back to be worth a lot more than if we're taxing it. So that's kind of me for tonight. Appreciate your all's continuing support. Thank you.
So Drew, you're asking us to submit this report?
And I do want you to look at, it's done by humans, there could be mistakes. You may think of some things additionally that we did not think of. In the final draft, one of the added items was the idea that you could go to Marie Street, and since it's an identified location on our maps, even in this area, 1400 Marie Street, send the pizza there, I want pepperoni.
Yeah.
And you can have your own catered picnic in a matter of minutes, and there's vendors fighting over that delivery. So it's not just that we have to have a restaurant on the map, on our trail. We've got 2 great restaurants in town, depending on their venue. We found out that Audubon people coming in, that's the big thing. Audubon folks will probably go to the more expensive restaurant, which is fine, because that'll still bring in some revenue. Right now, our hotels are all outside of town, but we have some cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce folks that are involved with those hotels. So I see just a tremendous win-win for the town on this, and I encourage you all to look forward on it there.
Do you want us to vote on this next?
I think it's appropriate that you all take a look at it before voting on it. What you could do is, a suggestion might be to accept and submit unless someone comes up with reason not to. If
Or we
Mr.
could
Merrick,
put
you
it
would
on the
agree with
next
that?
agenda?
I read it this afternoon.
I glanced at it, but we could put it on the next agenda even.
Well, when's
When do you
the
need it?
deadline?
I'm not sure when the deadline is, but I know that, typically OGT is going to have a more pronounced official agenda probably right at the beginning of June. They said the meeting is in later June, the next one was September or October, is what I was told. So the sooner we could get it in, the higher likelihood. There was not a published agenda deadline. But I'm just thinking, I encourage you, I think our chances are better, frankly, if we're in this next queue. So, great, thank you all.
Thank you.
Are you gonna be able to get that on the next agenda?
Yeah. 2 weeks. All right, move on to Parks and Recreation. Anyone here? All right, planning and zoning, Liz?
Liz Ritter, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Board. Good evening, council, mayor, everybody. We hope we have our meeting Wednesday, and we hope to make our recommendations to you about the marijuana dispensary regulations. Thanks to Mr. White, we've come up with some areas in the Florida statutes that we think will move us along quickly. So that's gone out to the members, and hopefully that'll be a quick read-through on Wednesday. We're going to be reviewing the 5-year plan for the capital improvement, which should go along pretty quickly too. We've looked at it before. The sign ordinance, we're going to be going over page by page so we can get all that shuffled out, so hopefully that'll be going well. We did have a member of our board that had filed a complaint about a violation of the sign ordinance, and I was just wondering if we are not enforcing our current codes? Are we waiting?
I know, what it was we're gonna wait until
How
after.
do we ask you that? Get the final,
Go ahead, Doug.
until we get the final sign ordinance adopted.
Well, that could be a while, so if somebody else comes in asking for a sign, are they gonna be able to do what the other people are doing now that's in violation? It'd be hard to tell them no,
That's a possibility.
because they're on a main street where everybody sees it.
Well, the quandary is, if we receive a complaint about a single sign owned by a vendor or a commercial entity in the town, and if they had deep pockets, if they were smart, they would go throughout the town with a copy of the current sign ordinance, locate everyone that had a sign that wasn't in compliance, which is quite a few, Liz, quite frankly, and they would file a complaint about those signs.
Well, they could turn in a
So-
complaint too, and then
The
we're
town-
reactive, not proactive, so if they
Right.
wanna do the footwork.
So then we would have to respond to that. So now the town becomes embroiled in a number of situations instead of just one. And I think I think we would be far better served to just wait until the sign ordinance is approved by council. And
Well, but I thought normally we went by what's already on our books.
I'm
It
sorry.
seems like when we don't go by what's on our books, we get into more trouble than, enforcing what we do have on our codes. I mean, because there's some other new businesses going in, and if they see the sign just up the street, how can you tell them no if we're not enforcing that action? And
Let's keep this to a report.
Okay, so are we reactive or proactive?
I have a question for the attorney on that. I just want, because I know like old signs that are out of compliance, they're already grandfathered in, aren't they?
Well, there's a lot to take into consideration on whether or not a non-conforming sign is grandfathered in or not, depending on how long it's been there. When was it installed? Was it installed under different code sections and all that stuff? But I mean, if the sign is illegal under our current ordinance, and it doesn't change with the new ordinance, it's still a legal sign. Okay, so we'll be able to enforce those restrictions. The point we were focusing on is that we don't know what changes are going to be made to that sign ordinance when it comes back. Some of these signs that are illegal may be legal now. I don't know. But if they're still illegal.
Well, the person's on the board, so I think they have a pretty good idea that it's not going to be legal. So we pretty much know what have been changed, and I think some of them, people are worried about being illegal. We're not looked at properly, and they're really not out of compliance.
Again, it's illegal now, and the sign doesn't change, it's going to be illegal tomorrow. So we're not going to have a problem with enforcing the current code against an illegal sign. For those people who see it and want the same sign, well, you can't put up, they can't come in and get a permit to put up an illegal sign, so.
Well, they can do it without a permit like some of them are doing. And we're not enforcing it, so that's the problem.
They're in the same jeopardy as that person is right now that we're talking about. If the sign remains illegal under the new version of the code. There's no problem I see right now, considering what we're going through with the pending ordinance, with enforcing the sign code later, if that sign still remains illegal.
It just seems to cause a lot of problems, because the people on the board don't think that what's illegal now is gonna become legal.
And I understand
You
that.
know, and I guess now we'll be in a time push trying to get this done, where
That
before it
board
was
doesn't
done.
make the decision, this one does.
Right,
So they may change it.
right. So if they get a lot of flack, the heat's gonna come to you.
That's why they get paid all that money.
Yeah.
Let's get back on the report.
That's pretty much it. We were concerned about that, since, you know, it's just seemed in the past that they were already enforced what was already on the books, and that's what's caused us some problems in the past.
Any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Move on to public comments. I got one card from Tom Saliba. Please state your name and address for the record.
Tom,
At the podium.
Mayor, ladies, gentlemen of council. My name is Tom Saliba. I own a property at 400 Hall Road, which is closest to the Tillman Reservoir. And I am here to voice my concern in regards to the culvert project that is on hold at the current time. Things get started, then it stops, it starts, it stops. I believe, and I do have some notes, why I'm here, and this culvert is so deep that it actually went into the water table. It's drained my pond. That is water from the pond. If we could, and they're not in any order, but as you can see, after a heavy rain, it washed out. Part of that has been fixed by the town. That's what it looked like prior. And then after that's my pond. So my pond leached into the culvert, and I'm frustrated, is what I am. Nobody would want this in front of their home. I feel as though it's devalued my property. I know things take time, and I know we need storm drains, but years and years of neglect are the reason we have some of these problems. The workload that the town, the Public Works Department has is huge. Just listening to the other comments tonight, how can these two gentlemen and Tom possibly finish up this project? There's my drained pond. That was the original cut that is in front of Keith, my neighbor's property right now. And we thought that's all it was gonna be. But then they made that second cut, and my pond level, my ducks left, a couple of my koi are gone, you know, the fish are dying. I'm just frustrated. And I know it's manpower, and no disrespect to the public works or the town, but I believe this project may be above, or we need somebody else to do this. I don't think that they can handle this project, and it's taken 2.5, 3 months just to cover a quarter of a mile. How are we gonna do this culvert all the way to Weber Road? I'm frustrated, and I wanted to go on record with this, and, you know, I love the town. I tried to keep everything looking as nice as I could, and my building to match the aesthetics of the house and the property, but I invite any of you to please come by, drive by. None of you would want this culvert in front of your home. And any help or any reconsideration of this project would be greatly appreciated, whether somebody, just reevaluate the situation. Because if it goes all the way up the street, there are other homes with ponds that, if you dig down 4 feet to do a culvert and try to make the water run from Weber to the Tillman, you're gonna have other people, they're gonna lose their ponds also. And I'm not an engineer, I don't know how to do this project, but I truly believe it needs to be reevaluated. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I have been by and talked to you when they first started this work.
I appreciate that.
I don't understand the pond leaching in there like that. You know, my question would be, what can we do to stop that?
And how deep, you know,
Yeah.
we all know the water table in the state of Florida is high.
Right.
So when you dig down, 4 feet,
Yeah.
you're into the water table, and it leaches underneath, and that, when you saw that culvert filled with water, that was my pond.
Yeah.
That was it. And it's frustrating, and there are other ponds on the strip, on Hall Road, that when you dig going further up to Weber, the same thing's gonna happen. And I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer.
I'm just talking with
But, I feel as though I would have never purchased the property if that, I call it the moat, you know, it's my moat. I believe it's overkill. I'm not an engineer, but it's overkill. And I just think it was neglect. It doesn't, there are other issues. I mean, we were there after the hurricane. My yard was not flooded. My street was not flooded. You know, the water was running across Weber and Hall Road, but down the end, I didn't have an issue. And that's all. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you letting me vent. And thank you. And I just hope it gets reevaluated. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to ordinances for the second reading, approval budget, ordinance for the first reading, approval budget amendment for fiscal year 2016-17, ordinance 2018-02. Please read by title only.
An ordinance of the town of Malabar, Brevard County, Florida, pertaining to a budget amendment in fiscal year 2016-2017 to provide for additional revenues received over budgeted amount, to provide for the additional expenditures over budgeted amount, to direct surplus revenues to reserve funds on deposit, providing for conflict and providing for an effective date.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the amendment.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So we're putting 100, I'm trying to find the number, 156K?
$156,788
Okay, back in reserves.
into reserves.
Does that sound right?
I like that.
Any other further discussion?
We're putting it back into reserves to spend it? Is that what we're doing?
No, it's going into the bank.
Reserves.
Okay.
Reserves.
Reserved funds on deposit means it's going to the bank.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ball.
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Councilmember Corn is excused. Councilmember White,
Aye.
motion carried 4-0.
Thank you. Move on to approve budget amendment for fiscal year 2017-18, budget ordinance 2018-03. Please read by title only.
An ordinance of the Town of Malabar, Brevard County, Florida pertaining to a budget amendment in the fiscal year 2017-2018 to provide for additional revenues from restricted reserves on deposit, to provide for the additional expenditures to complete necessary road improvement projects, providing for conflict and providing for an effective date.
I entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, because I just found this out the other day, when we were talking about paving Eva Road, and I heard so many people up in arms, you know, how are we gonna pay for this, you know? And this is actually transportation impact funds, okay, that can only be used for such a thing. And I was new to this, and somebody should have stepped up and said, hey, you know, all of you that say we're paying for something we can't afford it, the money is already there. That money has been accumulated and not touched for what, every 10 years?
He said
Yeah.
2007.
And can only be used for such purpose. Otherwise, it just sits there, you know? I just want to say that.
It's a smart allocation of funding
Yes.
to go for the restricted money when it fits. When the shoe fits, let's wear it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we talked a lot about in our budget time last year was the crowning the roads. There's a lot of dirt roads that have been stripped with the grading.
This money can't be used for
It
that.
can't be used on those roads
No.
at all?
It's maintenance.
Yeah, that's maintenance. It can only be used to improve or widen the road
Upgrade
for
them?
traffic purposes.
Capacity.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Do a roll call vote.
It's the entire of the ordinance.
Hold on.
Well, this is correct because it's restricted reserves on deposit. It won't be advertised until tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't sent it in because this hasn't been approved yet.
You just gotta fix that
So,
when you do
the title will be corrected. It doesn't say restricted. And I believe the ordinance that you signed did have that on there. Roll call. Councilmember Ball.
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Ribbit.
Aye.
Councilmember Corn is excused. Councilmember White.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. So now both of these ordinances will be legally advertised and they'll be before you on the 21st for the public hearing.
We've moved on to resolutions. Adopt resolution 02-2018 regarding the 2018 ballot amendment number 1, resolution 2-218. Please read by title only.
The resolution of the Town of Malabar, Brevard County, Florida concerning Amendment 1 to the Florida Constitution, which if adopted would create additional inequities in Florida's tax system by granting certain tax breaks to some taxpayers at the expense of other taxpayers, providing for conflict and providing for an effective date.
I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I did some research on this, and what it boils down to is, first off, this homestead exemption does not apply to any school tax that we're already paying, okay? So of the 15.3020 that we paid last year, millage rate, almost 5.5 of that is to the school taxes. So this $25,000 amounts to about a $209 savings in tax to the homeowner that qualifies for it, because it only goes from 100 to 125,000 property value. Okay, and the town of Malabar only receives $52 of that would be exempted. Our cost to this town is going to be close to $30,000. We already struggled to make ends meet, and everybody loves a tax break, but it's going to hurt us. Brevard County is probably going to lose, I think they're estimating about $12 million, you know, so that police MTSU that we pay is going to go up. Everything is going to go up in other ways, just so that I can save $200 on my property tax this year.
That was the reason why I wanted this on the agenda, was because I wanted the residents to understand the impact of them voting. But, you know, I'm not telling them vote yes or no. I'm just saying give them the information, and you can put it on public, whatever they call it, media, and you know, that way they'll know that, you know, this is the impact, that if you do vote for it, we are going to be losing money. Because I know it's just easy to vote yes because I want to save $20, but so anyway, that's the reason why Indian Atlantic did it, and that's why the Space Coast League of Cities wanted cities and towns to at least inform the residents. So in order to do that, you would do a resolution.
Yeah. And the state legislature, they're not giving us a tax cut, okay? Because their revenue comes from sales tax. This isn't affecting them at all. It hurts us, and they had the gall to put it on the ballot.
The state lawmakers are very generous with our money.
With our money, yes.
The thing that everybody needs to realize is it's going to take X amount of money to run the town of Malabar, the town of Grand Valkyria, Palm Bay. It takes X amount of money to run the town. If somebody comes through and says, oh, you're going to save some money, well, there's going to be a fee, there's going to be something, there's going to be an impact fee. Something is going to have to fill the void to run the town. And it's more education than anything else, to educate people on what will it take to run your fire department, run your police department. You want to take the money away by taking it off houses, then there's going to be another way that it's going to have to be charged. Just as long as people understand what they are voting for.
I understood. The 100,000 to 125,000, is that on everybody's property? Because at first when I read it, I was like, there's not that many homes in Malabar that are worth that, or they're worth more than that, mostly, right?
Actually, there's quite a few.
Yeah.
So many that the property appraiser has estimated our loss in 2019 will be $34,000.
$34,000. So there's a lot of homes that are kind of under what I estimated when I was.
I think that's the point we're trying to make, that the few that will benefit from this, because your house has to be valued at least to that window in order to make full advantage of the 25,000, the third 25,000, okay? And that's off your tax bill, but not off the school tax. The school still gets all their money.
Right.
So the rest of the people are going to have to somehow, the town is going to have to make up that lost revenue by either raising other fees or raising other permits.
I understand, yeah.
All right.
All right, any other discussion? Do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ball.
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Ribbit.
Aye.
Councilmember Corn is excused. Councilmember White.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0.
All right, let's move on to good stuff. Let's talk, I guess I can entertain a motion to accept the lease offer from Crown Castle for 30 years with the 20-year payout.
I will move to accept the lease offer.
I'll
For
support
30
it.
years.
Discussion.
I think I have some questions. I was looking at the schedule, the payout schedule, and it shows me a 7, a 12, a 17, and a 20. But then from 20, it just jumps to 30, question mark? I just didn't understand that. What happens between 20 and 30?
We get all the money in the first 20 years,
So we don't get anything for
the
the,
last 10.
we get nothing for the last 10.
Correct.
I have a question too about that. Could we table this, because I didn't have time to research, but I wondered if we could even look at other, you know, you mentioned looking at other vendors too.
We've looked at other vendors over the past 2 years, and quite frankly, Crown Castle is the most generous of the bunch.
It's their tower, right?
It's their tower.
So the next person wouldn't get their tower.
Right.
The tower is what's valuable. The height of the tower is what's valuable. The land is down in the noise.
Over the 20-year period that people have come in and made offers, most of, on average, the decrease in revenue to the town, say pick a 20-year period, would be between $70,000 and $100,000, less than we're getting from Crown Castle now.
Yeah. Actually, you went over that in the report the last week.
Right, and quite frankly, I've not been accepting any more calls on this. I've met with 5 people in the last 2 years taking a look at this, and it's just a waste of time. Crown Castle is the most advantageous to the town.
Any other discussion?
I'd just like to take another look at this, if anybody else is in agreement.
Well, you can make a motion to table.
I motion to table.
Do I get a second? No second. Motion failed due to no second. My only question is on option 1C, there's an option 1C 17 years and an option 1C 20 years. Why not just get 1D?
I had that question. Why do we have option 1C and option 1C?
So that was my only question, but it specifically says 20 years, so.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried, 3-1.
Question for council. Since it's carried, I'm going to move ahead with getting the lease signed and
Correct.
getting back to Crown Castle this week.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Palm Bay for temporary quarters at the fire department.
I motion to approve.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion?
Yeah, no, sounds like a good
Right.
deal.
All right.
I think, wait a minute, I think I had a question, and section 1 terms. And I think my question was, full force and effect of this term and any renewal periods. What renewal periods were we talking about? And any renewal periods? Where it says section 1 term, the last sentence. I just had a question with the word "and" in there.
I guess they mean if we were to renew this, we,
Yeah.
But this was supposed to be a temporary thing?
yes, it's supposed to be 1 year.
Correct.
6 months.
Okay, 2 things. The reason they wish to come over here and borrow our facilities or use our facilities is because they're rebuilding theirs.
Correct.
Okay. Secondly, there's a 45-day written exit clause at any point along the way. If we don't like what they're doing or versa versa, we can exercise that clause. It's anticipated that the construction period would be a year or less. In the outside chance that it should run over 14 months, say, or some other longer period, then that would give them the option to renew only if we didn't give them a 45 notice to move out. So I think in either case, and Carl, you thought this.
Carl's looking at it, yep.
There's no automatic renewal. In some agreements, you'll see if, you know, neither party terminates the initial term, it'll automatically renew, so that's not here, okay? So this is not gonna be automatically renewed unless both parties agree to it.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that we should forward Carl's bill for checking this agreement out to the city of Palm Bay. That's just my opinion.
Thanks, Dean.
All right, I had one thing on page 2, up at the very top, I brought this up twice. It's 3-2, fire station facility usage. Carl had the right wording in here, it just didn't get caught here, so is it non-exclusive?
Non-exclusive.
Right, okay, so it's not none.
It's not none
It's-
exclusive.
It's changed up there, I mean, because of the way it was formatted and given to us, we couldn't change it.
Okay,
So it's non-exclusive.
okay, I got it,
The original is correct.
okay.
One last question, that page on C, maintenance, is this a maintenance determined up front? Is it something that, should something happen, then they would help with maintenance?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
but there's not a maintenance policy that's written?
Correct.
Agree to assist the town with any maintenance, but
Correct.
there's no agreement.
No written policy.
It's, we're gonna work this out.
Correct.
Okay, I just,
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 4-0.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to direction on repository for materials handling in the council meetings. I have a call from Drew. Please state your name and address for the record.
You don't have a PowerPoint.
I do not. Sorry, Paul, I had to go back to your discipline. I can make one. Now, real quick here, my business in the past has been a whole lot of IT and such. I would really have 3 recommendations as you all consider what you're doing with technology with regard to document storage and retrieval in the future. And very briefly, what I'm suggesting that you do, and one thing I've noticed being involved with council meetings and basically try to work with the town, my recommendation is that you post future documents in a readable format of Adobe, not just the image format. Meaning if you were to scan things in with OCR, optical carriage recognition, and it's a little bit larger file, but nevertheless, if that were to be published for public access, people could hypertext, look for things, council during a meeting, everybody could find something more quickly, there might be less consternation in the future over issues just because there's more time to find things and identify clarity. So the thought being is as you store historical documents, and I've been involved with this with past roles in IT, management, medical centers and such, but the idea is that you don't save everything. You save the most recent, you basically archive to where it's less expensive to retrieve something that you most likely won't need for a while. So it's kind of a tube type of effect. But my suggestion is the town invest in some kind of optical carriage recognition batch scanner. Roughly speaking, I can vouch for one I happened to get a couple of years ago. I love the thing. It's a Fujitsu. It's roughly $500 at Best Buy right now. Something to that effect will take 50 pages and scan them in with optical carriage recognition. You then identify the files based on looking at this file, that file, and so on. But basically, if you were to do that and publish it, your user base, the public, would be able to find things more quickly. You'd be able to find things more quickly because you can literally hypertext, look for whatever works.
So just make it more searchable.
Yeah, but to do that requires a little bit more technology. On the backside, it requires a little bit more storage space. But the fortunate thing in our day and age is storage space is very inexpensive. 2 ways to go on that. Second recommendation is that you basically look at an NAS system, which is really it's network attached storage. You could go to outside. That I would suggest to defer to Mr. Bone for the sake of the legality of what we store. But my perception is virtually everything we're talking about is public access, public record. So if anything could go on the web on a cloud storage with minimal risk of concern of being seen, it would be stuff that's for public view anyway. So I'm thinking if you could take advantage of that, you still need to archive the actual documents for retrieval as far as the original document. You don't just hand it over to some company that might go out of business. But You could then have it parallel to where the public could get to it. You could get to it during a meeting, people could come in and search for it, you print it out by exception. I'm just really suggesting, as you noticed this on the agenda, and being here tonight, I thought I should make a comment on it. Third item I was going to bring up relative to all this is your nomenclature of file naming. You could have an RTCM, and how you name it currently does not alphabetically sort to the logical date. What I'm suggesting is you use a convention of century, year, month, day after the primary concept. And I had thousands and thousands of files. It was one thing I very much digitally drowning in at some point. But going digital, and Mr. Vaughn I'm sure can relate to this, how you identify your files means whether it's worth it or not. But if you could add that to your naming convention, something, you have a bunch of files going way back, but they have kind of similar names over the years. Come up with a way of doing that to where you can find it, because by doing that naming convention, you can also remove it from its current queue, somewhat archive it to a less expensive retrieval point when the queue relatively fills up.
Sounds like you're recommending adding a Julian date?
It is essentially Julian date. But essentially today's date is 2018-05-07. And once that's out there in my file name, you can be talking about for 3 weeks and they have all kinds of comments. It's nothing to do with last date modified or date created. And what is the date we're talking about? And by doing that with your date-specific items, which is endemic with your world, you may find that life's easier. Maybe cheaper ultimately when you find things. But I'm just suggesting as whatever you're going to, and I'm probably talking too much for where you're going, but I saw it out there. I was thinking, you're talking about where to go in the future. These are 3 things I'm not seeing that I think it's time to talk about. I think the technology's there. I'd be glad to help you if you want more info.
So this scanner you're talking about costs about $500. And first I'd like you to get that information to Debbie, but do we have to have some support software added to
Windows? It comes with the software.
Okay. And what you're saying is this is something that could put these documents available on our town website?
You would basically be creating a file.
Just keep it in-house.
This does not give you a website on the internet. This is basically saying you would have a folder accessible to the internet, okay? But the naming convention would tie in with your folder directories. So say you had, let's just say there was a dozen main areas of documents. You would go to that area and that would have a folder. The dates would all be sequential because that's in the name. It ends up being, if you're looking at things by file name, you're looking at them logically. It's that simple of a thought.
So what we're already talking about is just a simple binder, physical.
No,
No, I'm not talking about it, but Debbie and a few of us were talking about a binder that we would physically store any submitted documents, okay? And you're talking about digitizing them for easy retrieval.
I'm saying you all would move to pulling things digital. Now granted, yes, there is a physical step.
Right.
So things, if I write a letter handwritten and submit it, you would now scan it, you'd have an image of it. And my signature may be critical, may not be. You might need that signature page. But if it's a 12-page document and you want others to be able to read what I wrote without having to see the image, you want the text, that's where the OCR part would come in. And right now, if you go out, you all, I don't know how you all do it because you're looking at so many documents, but you're looking at them without having the text referential inference. You're basically currently looking at a RTCM package as if you took a photograph of it versus if you had it typed in and you could search for it. So we're there. It's cheap enough now. It's the time to look for it. I suggest you all consider that as you move forward.
Go ahead, Jack.
Drew, so the device is $500-600, right?
Yes.
What about the personnel time involved to do this?
It's basically, I can tell you my experience at home because I tend to be a pack rat. I have every document since 1972 or something, but I now have a whole lot of them digital. And I avoid going to buying another file cabinet and putting it in there. I basically put it in a binder. Once I have really a file folder, I'm not even punching holes and stuff anymore. And then I drop it in the scanner, so many per day. And what comes up on this very simplistic software, I'm talking this Fujitsu, it's a Scan Snap is their brand of software that comes with it. I simply see an image and it automatically names the Julian date, but there's some limited way of doing that. I also use an Excel log, which is going to sound a little bit deeper, but there's only so many accounts. I do this for personal accounts and business accounts. And I establish the account name, and I'm just doing a drop down, pulling it up, creating the file name, saving it as that file name. It ends up being such a great wonder in this way, because I can later take the directory, albeit it could be 1,000 items, and those file names are built in a certain way. I can delimit them into.
Does it populate your Excel spreadsheets?
No, that's a separate.
That's a separate.
So you're still dealing with an indexing system, okay? But for instance, my power bill, my FPL bill is a hypothetical. That comes in, I've got the account established, the information I need to know, and it parallels how I've structured things. I go to the log, FPL bill, today's date. I drop down, key that in. It builds today's date in from that bill, whichever your methodology would be, either the bill date printed or the date of processing. You'd have to make that decision. But basically, I then have a file name that has this information built into it. You can have that as cumbersome or as simple as you want. It could just be that. But the thing is, once I have that file name, I simply rename and I move it to now my digital documents. No problem. That's
Okay,
it.
let's say you had 1,000 documents. What would you anticipate the personnel time would be to set those up into, let's say, 4 files, scan them in, and populate your spreadsheet? And if that's...
Yeah, I mean,
and
let me identify it this way, is that it wouldn't require reading the documents by any stretch in their entirety. If you would first disseminate all the RTCM packages
okay.
versus all the waste management rule changes, or whatever your categories were, then all of those going in, 12 pages, 14 pages, whatever, that whole set would then